All right, Kurt, how you feeling?
Great.
Rich is probably going to be a lot nicer to you than he normally is when we have guests on. He just jumps
I'm
in.
always nice. I'm always nice.
I've seen nothing else, so
Yeah, I'm the
I'm not
nicest
going to
one.
expect anything else.
You're the nicest one on these? Okay. We're not going to get into it, Rich.
Lee, you're pretty nice too.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
I'm not here for the looks, I'll put it that way. Or the brains, or the comedy. Like I'm here just to Sherpa
They're
the
here.
conversation.
They're here.
I am here. That is, I exist. I persist in this moment. All right, here we go.
Welcome to the show, where air takes the flow. Lee and Rich on the mic.
Welcome to the AI Guys podcast, where we make artificial intelligence easy to understand for everyone. I'm your host, Lee Dixon, and as always, I'm joined by the man who tells me to live every day in the moment, Rich Swire.
That's good advice. That's great advice, actually.
Yeah, the universe provides is what you keep telling me as I stress about things here and there.
You got to be Buddhist if you're going to be in the entrepreneurial chaos.
Especially how things have been shifting recently, man. It's just, it always moves a mile a minute. And that's one of the reasons we brought on our guest today. So today's guest is a 25-year software veteran with an impressive track record of building and leading high growth companies. He's a Microsoft alum, went on to executive roles for 3 successful startups. He CEO'd for 4 others and advises for a handful in the AI space. Kurt Daniel, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Lee, and thanks Rich as well. Excited to be here.
Absolutely, man.
Right
Yeah,
on.
it's
Microsoft, huh? Dude,
Microsoft.
Let's just dive right into that part. Let's just get it out of the way.
I want to hear more about. So, when were you at Microsoft? It'd be interesting to see.
2000 through 2004. I mean, it was during the bubble time. So there was a big pro and a big con. The big con was, I think it was right after the antitrust thing was launched. I don't know if that was before or after I accepted the offer. And then the big plus was it was a very stable place to be, and actually growing business unit. I was in the database group. We were taking share from Oracle, and that's when the whole .com bust happened. So it was a good place to be during those crazy times, right? After the bubble burst to around 2004, before finally being ready to take the plunge and go to a startup.
That's cool. Yeah, I had my Microsoft journey in early days. I got to go out there and I got to meet Bill Gates. It was really cool and go on campus. It's awe striking. Back then, it was like a big deal. It was like going to Mecca. Yeah,
It was.
Yeah, in the tech space
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he stepped down, I think, shortly after I joined. But I did get to go to a few meetings. He was still actively involved, and it was nice to have some discussions and then move on, take that experience and go have more fun, grow faster.
Yeah, and I'm sure from what you took from there, obviously led into the rest of your history, right? So having the ability to not only go through the startup phase, but establish phase, and now kind of giving back, if you will, back into some of these other spaces from an advisory position. You've seen what a lot of businesses have probably maybe created oversight on, or maybe like shot past what they should have actually been doing in the moment. So Rich and I, from what we've been doing on this podcast now for almost a year, is trying to help set the table for a lot of companies, no matter where they're at in this AI journey. So I figured today it might be nice with your expertise, Rich's, and obviously me, just to kind of walk through some stuff, look at maybe what most businesses get wrong in just their process. But let's really frame that around AI, because I think we're in that new renaissance where a lot of people are starting to dive in, but they're definitely going to be hits and misses depending on what industry you're in or how good your tech leadership is inside of your organization.
Sure. Yeah. No, I saw this. I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this, working on this in the past, particularly in the last year, but the last few years. And I did it within a portfolio of companies that all had the same owner. And so I saw what 30 plus other companies were doing, both smaller and bigger, to Axiom.core where I was. So I think it helped me see, share, compare, and contrast with all these other companies, and the whole idea I saw a lot of mistakes. But there's also some things you can do to prevent those and do well. So we can get into this as well. But I think there's just a lot of stress there right now, because I think a lot of executives, particularly CEOs and CTOs, but a lot of executives feel the pressure to do just this amazing stuff like overnight, right?
Sure.
And if you think about it, like a lot of these companies are run on, to a great degree on software. And we've had decades to learn new applications, learn new tools, new infrastructure, the cloud, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so I think that the idea of having to overnight everyone be experts in AI and automate every aspect of their business, or AI every aspect of their business, I think it's ludicrous. So I think there's a lot of stress there. Yeah, a lot to take on that shouldn't be. And it just gets in the way of progress, in the way of becoming knowledgeable, getting started, taking baby steps, and and then obviously, hopefully, picking up the pace. There's a lot of analysis paralysis, I think, on just all the different LLMs, all the tools you can have on top of the LLMs. Do we do it in-house? Do we get someone to help us to really kind of speed us up because they have some expertise? In fact, that was one of the reasons why I liked getting introduced to you guys some number of months ago. I have the idea that, we don't have to do everything in-house. And if someone's been spending years on this, like you guys have been spending years, or one of your competitors or whatever, why not benefit from that? If you'd be so generous as to provide that expertise, whether it's, kind of a consultative nature with how, my companies would use the platform, or even helping build something to get somebody started with regard to an agent in one area or another in the organization. So
yeah,
I think those are some of the problems. Another one is just not thinking big enough. So a lot of people are like, oh, let's go generate a marketing blog out of AI and let's pat ourselves on the back. I mean, it's a good start. But and you can take an approach of starting with something very small and easy and kind of, doing a knowledge base or something with AI. And, but I like the idea of doing that, but also thinking like, what is the most aggressive, the boldest thing we could do, in AI, whether or not we start building it today or tomorrow. But thinking there, and then the in between is easy enough to kind of fill in, but I wouldn't want to miss out as a CEO or an advisor or board member, investor, in going after something that could be really, really like going on offense or really transformative for the company. Because everyone's going to build from the bottom, I think.
Yeah, and that too, like CEOs are not getting super pumped about a new chatbot that someone's pitching to them, right? Like they need to understand what the grander vision is and understand if you're taking this in chunks to ultimately deploy this agentic workforce, it needs to start somewhere that is attainable, and also really focus on what Rich, beats the drum on every single day here is their business readiness versus just buying a tool that they think, okay, so we jumped in, we bought this thing, it's doing whatever. Like you said, we did it, we AI'd, and that's not really the case.
Check the box. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So go for it, Rich.
Yeah, it's so interesting when you think about the complexity from the business perspective. Take AI out of it. Understanding how AI works and the tool sets and the platforms, and that's its own amount of labor that's required to understand that world and to kind of cut through the noise and find out the signals and what's going to actually be what you want to use in your business. But I think a lot of businesses, to your point, Kurt, are having analysis paralysis just on the fact that they start to realize, like, for us to actually use AI efficiently, we actually have to think about from a culture perspective and maybe even from a investment from what we've already made in all these other software as a service companies and all these other stacks that we built out. How do we transform that? Because that's, I think, where it gets to be very difficult for even a CEO or CIO to really kind of just a scope of work, understand what that looks like. And that, back to your point about using third parties or bringing in consultation, probably adds a lot of value at that stage, more so than it does once you've decided what platform, what LLM, what you're going to ultimately start building out. A lot of that can be internalized. A lot of that can be relatively fall in place. But I think that initial, what are we going to do? How do we start? What's our long-term vision, as you pointed out? But then also, what's our first step into this road that we're about to travel down? It's complicated, and I think a lot of people are either getting this idea of a big five consulting firm coming in and pitching this multi-million-dollar, we'll tell you what to do, which that's never a good thing. And then, or you have these kind of people internally that are driving, maybe doing some skunk work projects, maybe doing some pilots, but they're also kind of getting to know and learn it real time as well. So they're not necessarily coming in it from a perspective of knowing they don't know everything that could potentially go wrong or everything that could potentially be used. They're just kind of playing around with this kind of world that's been thrown at all of us. But
it's like with anything, it's okay to make mistakes too. You can't just not start because it's complex, right? So I think just getting a starting point, and it reminds me of the mobile space actually with mobile apps. Rich, I've heard you talk about websites and people moving online even before that. But I was at one company, and there were very few organizations who could just be mobile experts just overnight. They could even make a few key hires, get the start of an app or whatever, but there's just so much going on. There's nothing wrong with getting some assistance, and if you don't need the help, that's great as well. And sometimes you start with some help, and then you bring it in house over time as well, or more in house over time as well. So it's whatever works for you.
Yeah, what are some parallels you think, your time in the mobile space, because that was a transformative time, right? That was probably very similar to what a lot of people are experiencing now, which is it's kind of a shift away from, okay, everything was on a website, everything was on a kind of on a PC perspective, and then now with smartphones, it was like, okay, now do we need an app? Same kind of rush to market, same kind of like, okay, what do we need to do in order to transform what we've currently have into this new mobile space, right? And then now there's, just like there's multiple LLMs, there was multiple marketplaces, multiple phones, right? And all these components. And then some people overshot where they might have built an interface to BlackBerry or something. And then and that lasted for about a year. Then BlackBerry was gone, and then iPhone. And so, I mean, maybe talk a little bit about how you could draw parallels.
Yeah, I guess, one of them is around how there were completely custom apps, or there'll be completely custom agents. But there are also ones that were kind of pre-built templates. Like you guys have the concept at Ray of templates as well, and I'm sure some of your competitors do as well, which give you like just a real boost in terms of getting started. And so I see that piece there. The organizations that really want to have the truly unique, innovative offerings should basically be doing the from scratch or heavily customized, of course. But just to start, can be a lot of usefulness, even just a template almost as it is. And that's one. Just the number of endpoints. I know you all talk about email, text, voice, etc. Which I think is really cool. Not just thinking about the websites or just one channel. Same issue with the mobile apps is some people would just we can only build the iPhone app, and we're just going to completely screw the Android people for now, or the other platforms at the time. And so by leveraging a platform, or at least thinking of a platform approach, even if you're not using a platform, so to speak, as a product, you can make sure you're not alienating users, and also be ready to think of new endpoints we haven't thought of, taking advantage of yet, that our customers, external, internal, may care deeply about. It was just a time of just great change, but also excitement and opportunity. And I feel like when I'm talking to some of these other organizations with AI, I'm feeling just there's a lot of just stress and confusion and that kind of thing. And I'd love to see a little more balance. Like, okay, you're allowed to be a little bit stressed. That's natural. Some stress is good. But let's be excited about what we can do here. We can. I've already seen these chatbots. A lot of them before using AI are quite bad. So
sure,
we're for the whole world. Hopefully, AI makes these chatbots suck. Not suck at all, or
suck
or
less.
At least suck less. Yeah. And then
that's the title of this episode is chatbots suck less. Yeah. Well, I want to ask you guys something on that really quick, because for those that do follow along with the AI news and what's happening, you hit on something with the mobile side of it. Rich has talked about it on the website as far as like the fear, uncertainty, doubt that kind of takes place in these cycles. I feel like inside of organizations, especially in the tech space, everyone needs to hit home runs or they think of it as a waste of time. So like you've got Lovable, who is, a vibe coding platform that is an absolute unicorn, has, growth greater than OpenAI did with ChatGPT. And everyone's looking at it as like, oh, wow, look what they did. But every other tool that also is trying to help with the coding process now becomes like, take it out back, shoot the horse, send it to the glue factory. Because like, obviously this is the only one. So like, do you feel like that might also be where leadership inside a lot of these organizations are worried about AI because they want to jump in, but they're also like, I'm going to get one swing at this because of how quickly it moves. And if I strike out, I'm out, and maybe that's a part
Yeah,
that's
I think that's wrong. And obviously, and I think it's important for leadership, especially the most senior leadership, to provide some psychological safety around these experiments and some realistic expectations. We had a competition we did among these 30 plus companies, and it wasn't really revealed until the end. But at the end, they were like, we were going to pick the winner in part because we believe you can actually execute on this. So don't give us this idea that's amazing and there's like robots with AI, and this is just a normal software company we're talking about.
Sure.
Doing billing or something. Like, we don't need robots.
Not the sexiest industry, but yeah.
Not today.
Yeah.
And not the sexiest, but it's an important one. A lot of money flows through billing systems.
Absolutely.
So the ability to execute on something, I think, is important. And go through all the ideas and think of the really sexy stuff and the really just the really simple stuff. But you fill it out in between as well, and do it as a team. I think anointing somebody, even at a small startup, even at a startup of 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, and then obviously much more mature organizations. I was within organizations that were anywhere from 20 to say 500 people. Appoint somebody to be, the expert, at least so people can go and ask those dumb questions. They can get some tips, some advice, and that kind of thing. And then go all the way with AI. It's obvious this is not something that's may or may not be valuable. It's already providing value with our web searches and so many other different ways that are just so obvious. And so put it into your scorecards or your performance targets for the year for ideally everyone at the whole company. Even if it's some really small developmental goal for, say, an accounts payable person, they don't have to have AI fully doing all the payable stuff in the next 6 months or something, for example. And so I think that's a way to really force it, and ideally, interesting enough, take some of that stress out and get people to really pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah, one thing that we've witnessed working with customers, and this could be another kind of factor that's not really obvious, but then becomes obvious really quickly when you start building out these agentic kind of solutions, is that it seems like there's a new cohort of innovators. I'll just call them innovators, but they're kind of pseudo developers, but they're more AI developers in the sense of they're like prompt engineers or just stakeholders in the business, but they're not the dev team. So we're like so used to having it where, okay, we're going to innovate something, we're going to build something, and all right, let's go to the guys that know how to code, and let's go to the guys that know how to integrate, and they're going to help drive this or help really kind of fuel this program or this product. And then lo and behold, with AI, it actually doesn't require that, especially in the beginning. In fact, it flips the entire thing the other way around, where usually you have to kind of build something. Yeah, you might have a spec, you might have a scope doc and a blueprint for the most part, but at the end of the day, it ultimately ends up becoming something, a derivative of that kind of session with the stakeholders. Stakeholders really don't see it until it's done, versus now, the people that are actually on the business side are driving I want to have this happen, or I want that to happen. Yeah. But more importantly, they have to be involved in kind of training and testing and explaining and building the AI model or the AI in general. And that also shift is also kind of, I think, what is holding a lot of people back, because those people aren't really used to investing time, quote unquote, in innovation side, right? It's almost like this kind of jarring feeling where we're like, we'll talk to a customer and we're like, okay, well, we're not really even looking at the dev team. Once the dev team, we're looking actually at the support team or at the sales team and going, hey guys, okay, now you have to come in and help train this thing. And they go, well, we've never really been involved in this kind of stuff. We've only been users. We've never really been, deep into in the development process. And so there's a shift too that, okay, how do you allocate those resources, right? And we find ourselves like struggling to even get their time because they're busy working.
But yeah, whether it's the development team or the IT team, something similar did happen with the SaaS tools. You remember the SaaS tools? Like, you could have a marketing team buy a SaaS tool for marketing, or several of them, and they could kind of almost bypass IT. It's nice to let IT know we're going to go do this in advance in case they have any major concerns. But this is, for your point, Rich, this is taking it to a whole nother level. And you can outsource it, but you can also take a more active role, ideally, at least in planning it, in terms of architecting, designing, thinking about what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is it's quite honestly, it's much more like hiring an employee than building out a software product. And when you hire an employee, you don't send them to IT to get trained, right? You send them to IT to connect to their Outlook and to get access to their to the CRMs and all that. But then what you do is you end up putting them next to Sam over in support, and they shadow Sam for a few weeks, and then they figure out, okay, now I've got a pretty good idea of how to solve these tickets, and then you put them to work. And that to me, I think that they're shockingly to me every time I work with customers, how awkward that is for them. Like we part of our system is this human feedback part of it, which is like super critical, where they'll run through tickets and we'll simulate tickets, or we'll bring in old tickets that existed and do back testing. But for the most part, all it is just a support team logging onto our product and looking at the AI answer questions, and they have to go in there and they have to rate them. That's it. They go, thumbs up. Yep, that was pretty good. That's how I would have answered that. And then nope, thumbs down. That's not exactly how I would have answered it, and give us feedback. But even that process is like, for whatever reason,
pulling teeth.
It's just weird for them. They're like, I don't understand. What am I doing? They don't understand what they're doing. They're like, oh yeah, you're talking to you're training the AI. Yeah. And part of it may be like fear, like, oh shit, I'm just training the guy that's going to replace my job. Or part of it's just the awkwardness of that behavior has not existed until today.
But ideally, you can provide some air cover, either you guys or whoever's leading that group or that company, some air cover to say, this is what you're going to get out of this, right? You're going to have more time to be, you're going to leverage cool new tools. That's pretty neat, right? If they're in any sort of tech role, support role at a tech company, if they're not, maybe it's a little bit different, but it's still actually, if they're not a tech company, they get to use cool new tools. I still think that sounds pretty interesting to a lot of people. And then it may enable them to be more on offense or do more strategy work in the future, have more time to hire better people where they need people to use the cool new tools. So they might just be missing there, or they just need to get through it. Like they just need to get through and train it, and then get to the other side of the rainbow.
Yeah, I think this goes back to our original kind of thesis at the beginning was, what are things that, mistakes that people make, or what are things that they miss when they're thinking about AI? And, I like what you said earlier, Kurt, about, you have to have a bigger vision and so forth. And also obviously have to have a rational road to get there. But another big component, and we touched on in past episodes, is there really needs to be this kind of cultural shift, and the leadership has to and we've had a couple customers tell us that they had to do this, where people would, they had to drag along their people screaming and kicking into this AI first mentality. But they basically just laid down the hammer and said, "Guys, this is not just a tool or just one thing that we're implementing. We're going to overhaul our entire business and refactor and re-underwrite everything that we know, and you're going to be part of it." And the good news is that with that, all the stuff that you used to do that you hated doing, we can push to the AI. You can be more attuned to things that are actually things that you actually want to do, and be more innovative and create more value for the company. But more importantly, it's super critical that everybody gets on board with this, because everybody now has to play a role in building this thing.
Yep.
That is really something that's, I don't think has ever really, been seen before.
No.
In a technology driven transformation. It's usually like, okay, everybody, you have to log into this CRM and you have to put in data. Like that's kind of a pain in the ass, but they understand why and they do it anyway. But this is more like you're now participating in this
creation,
very, very gray area type of experience, where that's where you're going to get the 10x output as a leader, is if you have not just the fact that you have a sophisticated platform and you have the technology and have all those things in place, and maybe partner with a company like us or whatever to achieve that. But then more importantly, getting your team on board and convincing them that there's a payday on the end of this. And I've actually even told companies, like one of our healthcare companies that has a pretty big rollout, getting their team to use their system, I said we should really motivate them to use the system, even reward them for using the system in whether it be whoever uses it the most, or a contest or a bonus structure, because quite honestly, the more that they put in the system, the more that they grade and tell the AI, this is right, this is wrong, or whatever, that's an additional, that's value that is more than just is more than a valuable to that one person. It values the entire company, because now that they've corrected the AI, that propagates out. So it's just kind of that mentality, I think, is not yet sunk in. And I think that's obviously part of what we try to push. And from a, just a high level consultation is like, hey, before you start working on your project, one big mistake we've seen other companies make is not culturally, from a company perspective, even if you're 5 people or 500, really communicate how serious and that you're taking this and why it's important for everybody to participate.
Yeah, one thing on that too, I do see that from previous tech installations, right? Like you were saying, you buy software, like having an internal champion is usually just whoever the department head is saying, I bought X, everyone use X. But getting the active buy-in from the team is, in this sense, not just inputting data, like you said, it's giving them kind of control on how this is going to be shaped for the organization. So the buy-in becomes like, everything I'm doing is improving on this piece of technology that we now have as part of our team, not just my job is to input enough data to where I can say, I've done my part, I'm done now, and then whatever happens, happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and 100%. And there's so many templates and examples, case studies people can look at to really, if they need some extra help to kind of get started with their thinking. And then who better to redesign these operations or activities or motions than the people who have been doing it for, 1 year, 5 year, 10 years. So I think they're the best people. You want to ask the CEO to redesign the support process, you may or may not get a good results. And I wouldn't bet on it. But I think, and then, in terms of the rewards, whatever you want to call them.
I think Rich is just talking about a pizza party if people actually use the ad. Like, it's very simple. He's like, talking about we got a 2-liter of Coke and a couple of Domino's pizzas, and thank you guys for your job.
Yeah. Well, I think when you're providing, you're becoming a builder of this, multiple agents that might be, ultimately the infrastructure of this business and the value that this business has, and participating in that process, and building out those assets, because there's a tremendous amount of ROI in that. And that ROI, I guess if you were to take it from a very high level, take it out of the company and just talk about the world, there is this, there's always talk about, well, if AI meets its potential and we start automating all this stuff and AI starts taking jobs, well, then we could go to a 3-day work week, and we might need to talk about universal basic income. So, this ether is already talking about how AI is going to impact the world in the sense of production. But then just talk about the isolated scenario of a company. The more people put into the AI, which then, of course, allows the company to save money, not have to hire or as fast if they need to support more customers, or find ways to automate and accelerate a lot of their delivery of product, whatever business they're in. It's just a new way of thinking is really how you have to think of it. It's not like I guess my point is there's a big difference between saying, okay, everybody, we installed Salesforce. Now you go into Salesforce and put in all your notes for your company, for your leads, versus saying, hey guys, we have an AI sales rep that's going to reach out to all the leads and ask qualifying questions. I need everybody to really kind of help me train this new digital employee, so it does a better job, so it better qualifies leads that come back to you. And it helps everybody. So instead of saying like, okay, mandating using this form fill, which is all these CRMs are, just like fancy databases, that don't really provide a tremendous amount of value to the sales rep. In fact, that's why nobody uses them, because it's, they're lazy and they don't want to put in stuff in there. And almost 9 times out of 10,
and Excel and everything else.
9 times out of 10, I log into our customer's CRM when we're integrating AI, and there's no notes. There's no note. I'm like, I don't even know what you guys are using this for. You're paying tens of thousands of dollars for.
But you got to integrate, Rich. You just got to integrate.
But the point is that by training this AI, and now once you have an AI, for example, that does that specific role, now the company gets lever from that, and it's an interesting way of reimagining your business. If I was a business that was currently not necessarily down the road of AI very, very far, I would be thinking about 5 or 6 roles that either cost me the most money or cause the most challenges to delivering my product or supporting my product or whatever it might be, and starting to figure out a way to transform whatever knowledge I have into those AI agents so that my team can lever first and then maybe expose it to the world. But by doing that, you know, and getting people on board, you might have to think about the incentives and that come with that, because it is an unnatural behavior. It is unnatural for a sales rep to think, all right, well, if I'm not following up with a call or I'm not closing a deal, let me go over to this AI and try to train it and ask it questions, right? It's not normal. So you almost have to, like, it really does become this kind of new path. And I think it's just acknowledging that is probably something that businesses haven't gotten to that level yet of understanding that that's required. And we just want to make sure that, you know, they don't miss that opportunity.
Well, and saving money or having higher efficiency is nice. Like more productivity, like it's a little more exciting when, okay, now we're making the sales reps more knowledgeable or more effective, more successful. And then there's the whole customer, like which of these agents did the customers rave about? Like, you know, even if they didn't know it was an agent, they were just happier with response time or accuracy of the answer, or not having to have, like, you know, 5 different, tickets back, your emails back and forth for a ticket system or something like that. So the customer impact. And then what did we do that we just couldn't do before? Like AI enabled a whole new thing. We didn't even conceive it before. We weren't even thinking that way. So there are a number of different ways. And ideally you get a little of all that or a lot of all that. It's not just about saving money. I think that's not what's going to get most humans excited, right?
It's time, really. Time is like the biggest commodity and asset, and AI compresses it to the degree of where, you know, you can really, like people, we've seen people scale businesses, especially new companies that have taken the AI first mentality dramatically. You know, no different than what .com businesses did to back in the 90s, but like, that same scale that you would witness with the use of tech. Yeah. I mean, and I think one other point, which I think we should maybe just, before we finish up, to kind of highlight would be, when you think about, the AI moving so fast and so much is changing, and quite honestly, we're in as much as you can be on the edge as possible, as far as working with these new models, working with the latest tech, and even we find ourselves going, wow, this stuff is really half baked. Like what we just got, that latest release from Google, and that's that's like the king of kings, right?
They're even rushing to get something to market to say, look what I did. And everyone kind of jumps in saying, wow, this is great. But when you get behind the curtain, you're just like, I mean,
you're like, oh, this is not really
I'd
working
rather use
exactly
the old model
how
until this goes.
You think.
Yeah.
So there's a massive buffer there of knowledge. We talked a little bit about why you should partner with somebody who's been doing it for years, because there's what you don't know can haunt you and can delay things and create failure where there should be success. But more importantly, like as a company too, like being aware that even what we're seeing or what we're being told out there is like what's happening. We're seeing these demonstrations, or we're seeing this like work in the wild. There really hasn't been that much that surfaced and that is out there that is working at scale. And so we're so very early in this world. And even the people that are making the baseline tech, like the large language models and even just some of the frameworks out there, there's a lot of flaws, and there's just a lot of misaligned expectations. So that, I would be another thing. I know this is probably not too dissimilar to your experience with mobile and maybe other components, but maybe speak to that a little bit too. Like what should they be thinking about? How do you deal with being, early adopter so that you don't feel like you're falling behind and you're taking advantage of this, but at the same time, and I think you put it really, really well. I forgot exactly what you said, but like psychological freedom or something.
Yeah, safety.
It's psychological safety.
Freedom's good too. Freedom's good too.
Yeah. No, it's almost like you have to kind of buckle up with like, hey guys, we're going to go hard on AI, but it's cool if we fail, because it may not be your fault. It may be the fault of the provider we're picking, but let's fail fast. Let's fail often. Let's throw some stuff against the wall. let's not make maybe it doesn't touch the customer right now. Maybe it's all internal, which is what we say. But I don't know. Speak to that. Maybe like how would you approach it if you were a CEO of a company 50 to 500 people, as you've been in the past? Like what would you do if you were saying, all right, everybody, we're having all hands and we're going to talk about AI? What would be your approach?
Well, I mean, some of the things we already talked about, but I mean, there's opportunities to have reviews before you launch things, right? I love the idea of starting internal or starting externally, but having people review it that know what they're doing. So the marketing person who did it, have somebody who wrote that blog post in the past,
checks and balances.
review the AI. Yeah, review the AI. They know what they're kind of doing. Or the support person, review the how the AI did, right? Mm-hmm. Rather than some new intern that has no concept of support, excellence, or anything. So I think that those you can do reviews. Check. Ask your manager or peer to look at it, and then if they have experts, I think there's a whole expertise team that you can rely on. But yeah, I just think just getting comfort with these things. I talked about trying to be a little bit excited about the opportunities that exist there, not just having this trust, but also start. The smallest baby steps is just go use Chat GPT like a couple times a day. Have it create a new workout program, create some images, no matter how ridiculous they are, right? You want to be a football player when you were younger, have it create an image of you or video of you in your, favorite team's outfit and see how good or bad it is. And then, manipulate it or edit it or whatever. And so just, there are just so many different ways and different things work for different folks. But our idea here is just to kind of mention a lot of ideas which people can kind of choose from, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things that at first I thought was a little bit a little bit odd, but ended up being actually kind of a genius idea is one of our colleagues within the CSI ecosystem is Scott, who works in the finance side. He did this contest with all the different leaders from all the different divisions, right? So this is
all the finance groups specifically.
Yes, a massive company. But he basically said, we're going to create music videos, which is probably the last thing you'd think that a finance group would do. But then they ended up doing this contest. It was I don't remember, the 15, 20 applicants across multinational business. And it was great. Like they came up with all, they did basically these music videos, all AI generated, basically around finance topics. And then he ran a contest and then the winner won. And then, we kind of judged it. And it was actually ended up being this kind of very on the extreme of, this is a great way to get people to engage with AI and just get used to it culturally and see what's possible. And it also has that, fun, element to where it's like, oh, wow, this isn't scary. This isn't, let's see what's possible. I thought it was genius at the end of it, because as I was watching it, I was like, man, what's really happening here is you're getting people to invest time and energy that they know in the back of their mind. There's no payday here. It's not like they're going to be that they're going to generate some AI generated video and get picked up by Netflix or something. But so it's not it's their own personal time, right? And it's in a sense investing in building something of value and getting excited about it, which is actually the kind of mentality you have to have with AI, because it's not part of your core job to participate in creating things with AI yet. So you almost have to have that freedom, that fun approach.
Yeah, you're like Kurt was saying earlier, you're going to do a lot with it and it's not going to necessarily do anything. Just experimenting with it. And to your point too, you're going to get in there and you're going to fail at a lot of things, but the whole point is to test, to try to just invest some of your effort into it, because you'll see that that'll unlock more for what you can actually do with it in your functions.
Yeah, and it's okay if the first couple things that you're doing or you're telling your team to do are purely for the culture, purely for just the experience. Yeah, exactly. Experiencing AI and kind of slowly, iteratively getting them to the point where they come up with the ideas. They're going, hey, we did that video thing. That was a lot of fun. But while we were doing that, we came across this other tool that we thought might be useful in doing X, Y, and Z for, on the marketing side. And then they start collaborating. They start kind of getting into that flow state of okay, what else can we do versus it coming from, some other source. But
that's a phenomenal way to learn. I may steal that idea and use that sometime. But that other be having the forcing function and the near term deliverable time limit. You can't allow yourself to get stressed or just sit around and worry. You have to get going. You have to, okay, how am I going to create this music video? Which AI is going to help me do this? Try the first one. That was terrible. Try this other one. This one worked. Okay. There's a deadline, and no one's going to get fired if that music video didn't turn out well, as long as you try.
So props to Scott for that. I mean, I think that's something that I think could be applied in other ways. It doesn't have to be a music video. It could just literally be anything, but it could be like we're doing it here with some vibe coding, where people vibe code in, different apps in our developer network, where they might say, I'm going to spin up a note taker that integrates with Rhea AI agents, or I'm going to spin up a scheduler or whatever. They just come up with whatever app they want to come up with, and they vibe code it. So that's another great way to get innovation happening within an organization. That's, again, just more of an ideation phase to get people talking about it, and it starts to permeate into, okay, it will at some point then permeate into the meetings. And so when somebody's having a meeting about this problem that we're having in sales or support or dealing with tickets or whatever, they go, well, why don't we think about doing AI? And then now you have this alignment from bottom up, top down, and now it becomes very fluid. I think that's the best takeaway of this show, is like being, like you said, having the psychological freedom or safety, and being
some excitement about this,
and getting some excitement and being experimental. Without that, you're right. I think it hits that malaise, that inertia, where people go, oh gosh,
you just get stuck.
It's like stuck. It feels like very binary. Oh man, if we screw up this thing, oh man, we're it's the worst thing that's ever going to happen.
Our best takeaways always come in the last minute of recording. Like that's we string you along the whole time, so you have to listen. You're like, I can just come in at like minute 30 or minute 35 and we're done. So well, Kurt,
we are recording this, right? Yeah, we are.
Exactly. No, this is all good. So thank you so much for coming on, man. We're gonna have to definitely have you back down the road and kind of dive into maybe some of the things you started to notice from the advising side of things as AI starts to pick up more in these companies. So
would love to. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Awesome, man. And for everyone listening, thanks again for joining us on this episode. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to stay in touch. Also, check out our Substack for more content, which we linked to this episode to continue this discussion. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Welcome to the show, where air takes the floor.